Hi, I'm Jon Finn from Berklee College of Music here in Boston, and you're watching ForGuitarPlayersOnly.com, the rockinest online blog in the world.
Hi everyone, John Liebman here. You're watching ForGuitarPlayersOnly.com. Coming to you today on location from Boston, Massachusetts, on the campus of the wonderful Berklee College of Music with Berklee guitar professor Jon Finn. Hey, John.
Hey, John, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
Good. I'm pleasure to meet you because you spell your name properly. It's Jon, not John.
That was the first thing that attracted me to you. I said, that's a good guy. He knows what's going on.
That's right. It's John, not John.
That's right. We've communicated quite a bit over the years via email, and I think we may have spoken once or twice, but we've never actually met face to face. My closest encounter with you was when I interviewed Joe Santerre last year for my one of my other sites for BassPlayersOnly.com.
Right. Joe is unbelievable. He's like seriously one of the most underrated and most talented bass players I've ever met. And he's incredible.
Really into the six-string bass primarily. That's his thing.
Yeah.
Yes. But okay, go to ForBassPlayersOnly.com. Check out Joe Santerre, Santerre. But enough about those bass players. Let's talk about you and guitar stuff. You're a lifelong Massachusettsian.
Yes.
You learned a new word, didn't you?
That's right. Yeah. I'm going to spend the next couple of weeks practicing pronouncing that word before attempting it in public.
There you go.
So, Massachusettsian.
There you go.
I did it. Cool.
Okay.
That's good.
Cool.
Learn something new every day.
Well, I'm interested because you've been on the faculty here since like '88, which is a long time already.
That's
But how were you first exposed to music? What was your musical upbringing like, as far as your family and your records playing, radio, parents, brothers and sisters? How would you describe your musical upbringing?
Okay, well, my dad, growing up when I was very young, my father was a disc jockey at a radio station.
So was my dad.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So my dad was a disc jockey at a radio station here called WORL, which was located in Kenmore Square, which is maybe just a stone's throw from here, from Berklee. But he would play all the hits of the day, and then he would bring home this huge collection of 45s. So, I just had this really unique opportunity to just listen to all kinds of music growing up, all styles, different. He was the first one that would bring home rock and roll recordings.
My dad used to take us to concerts back in the early days, like the Dave Clark Five and the Love and Spoonful and the Association. Did you get to do any of that with your dad?
I did a little bit, actually. My dad took me to one concert when I was 9. No, I take that back. 2. One of them was
When you were 2?
No, well, I was 9.
Okay.
2 concerts. One of them was a band called the Cowsills.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, which
I
was
love the flower girl.
That's right.
You know the actual title to that song?
What was it?
Rain, the Park, and Other Things.
That's right. I forgot that. Yeah. So the Rain, the Park, and Other Things.
And they had another big hit. What was that?
Hair. That's right. So I got to go see them.
I liked the little girl because she was about my age. We were both about 7 at the time.
I totally had, that was Susan Cowsill.
Yeah.
I had a total crush on her when I was a little kid.
I heard her on the radio within the last year or two with Cousin Brucey on satellite radio.
Oh, that's awesome. How's she doing?
Good. She's still about my age.
Well, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So, and then the other concert was the Monkees, believe it or not. Yeah. So, and they actually did play live, and they were great. I think they did have some musicians playing behind the curtain, because Mickey Dolenz would step out in front from the drum set, and somehow the drums would magically keep playing. But
I saw the Monkees back in the 80s. Actually, I did a gig with Davy Jones. I was in the pit orchestra of the musical Oliver.
Oh, that's cool.
When he was a kid, he played Oliver, but then he was a grown man, so he played, what was his name?
Fagin?
Fagin. I was going to say Fabian. Yes, Fagin.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. Well, that's yeah. That's awesome. So you've done a lot of pit work then.
Oh yeah, quite a bit.
That's cool.
Yeah, I toured with Into the Woods, the national tour with Cleo Lane and Stephen Sondheim. That was a lot of fun. And Phantom of the Opera. But this is not about me. This is about you.
But I'm curious. It's good to know these things. That's awesome. So so my earliest recollection of wanting to play guitar, there was a television commercial advertising a product called the Tiger guitar, and it was a plastic guitar with a little plastic amplifier.
You were about how old?
6, maybe. And the guitar, the commercial showed a kid about my age playing guitar in his backyard, and all the kids in the neighborhood were sort of flocking to him and saying, "Oh, he's amazing." So as a little kid, that was like, that's for me. I want to be popular. I want to be popular with the girls. I want to play guitar. So, so at Christmas time, my parents got me a real guitar. Of course, I was bitterly disappointed that it wasn't the Tiger guitar, but I soon started taking lessons with a wonderful woman named Mrs. Haywood, who she could play maybe four chords or so, but loved kids. So she was the one that really inspired me to really kind of dig into it and take it seriously.
For most guitar players, that's plenty. That may be even one more chord than you need for superstardom.
That's probably true, yeah.
If they're the right ones.
The problem is I only know 3 out of the 4 chords, so
there you go. Well, as you got older, obviously at some point you got serious with the guitar. Did you have any guitar heroes or influences that you wanted to emulate or be like?
Oh, sure. From a very young age. Well, probably my first guitar hero was probably the guy from the Animals and House of the Rising Sun. The first time I heard that electric guitar lick in House of the Rising Sun, the world ended for me. It was like that's one of those, and he was never the same again.
I lived through that same period as you. We grew up around the same time, and you were not a band if you did not play that song.
That's right. So, and soon after that, I discovered Creedence Clearwater Revival. My sister was 13 when the Beatles were on Ed Sullivan. So I kind of was force-fed the Beatles, and for a long time I didn't dig the Beatles just because of that association. It's like, that's the music my sister liked. And of course, years later, I was like, hey, wait a minute, that stuff's kind of cool. So, early guitar influences, probably Carlos Santana, probably Jimi Hendrix, definitely Duane Allman, Jeff Beck, later Steve Morse from the Dixie Dregs, still later Joe Satriani, George Benson, Eric Johnson, Carl Verheyen, I think is Guthrie Govan, and there's a bunch of other players. But just a quick little note. Most people mispronounce Guthrie's last name. It's Govan, like oven, and that came from Guthrie himself.
That's funny. I'm sitting here thinking I'm being polite because I was thinking, oh, he didn't pronounce that right. But apparently you're saying that with a lot of conviction and authority. So,
well, the first time I met Guthrie, that was one of the things.
Govan?
Yes.
Okay.
So that was one of the things he said to me. I said, "Hi, Mr. Govan. It's nice to meet you." And he said, "Govan, like oven."
Well, I'm the governor.
Exactly. So. And of course, I mean, so these days I'm listening to everybody, or everybody I can get my hands on. I should say.
Well, I mean, some of the names that you mentioned, like Hendrix, obviously, and Jeff Beck, and some of the older. What about some of the people today? Is there anybody that's one of the newer, younger, hotter guitar players that's gotten your attention?
Well, yeah, there's that band. Well, of course, there's Dream Theater, although they're not really young anymore. John Petrucci. I really like the guitar player. What's his name? Michka from Periphery.
Oh yeah, Misha Mansour.
Misha. Yeah.
I interviewed Nolly, the bass player.
Nice.
On the bass side.
I think that band is incredible. There's another band around called Pliny, which I really like. I don't know the names of the guitar players. There's a guy named Mateus Asado who's really coming on strong. He's got a really nice thing going.
What about someone like Tosin Abasi?
Tosin's amazing. He's amazing and imaginative and smart and sensitive. Tosin and I actually did a guitar workshop in Toronto called Guitar Workshop Plus together. I went in and taught like a rock seminar for the week, and Tosin came in for 2 days and taught with me. So yeah, that was cool. That was really cool. He did an amazing job.
I want to touch on a couple highlights from your career, because you've played with everyone from Dweezil Zappa to Debbie Reynolds. That's quite a spectrum. Can you share with us a couple? I mean, there are a lot. I think didn't you do some stuff with the Boston Pops?
Yes.
And then you've got your own band, the Jon Finn Group. So can you share one or two highlights of something that you find particularly notable or that you're particularly proud of?
Well, okay, I've done so many of those types of gigs. Basically, my career has kind of four legs to it. One is the educational side, where I teach up here at Berklee, and I write instructional materials for magazines or books from time to time. Another thing that I do is freelancing, doing musical theater productions, or doing freelancing or whatever. And third leg is I've been the guitar player for the Boston Pops Orchestra for the past 20 years. And then finally there's my own band, the Jon Finn Group, which is a progressive instrumental, the band's, probably the best way to describe the band would be sort of like what would happen if Dixie Dregs was a little bluesier and a little funkier.
Okay.
You know what I mean? If you can imagine that,
Well, I've heard your music, so I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
the rest of you, Jon Finn Group, and Jon is Jon.
Yeah, jonfinn.com, jonfinn.com. With my own band, we put together 3 CDs that have been released. We're currently working on a 4th, but I'm not even going to venture to guess when the release date is, because
when it's ready.
Yeah, when it's finished and when it's finished. But that's been amazing, just because we've been able to make the music we want to make without compromising or trying to address current trends or fashions. We just kind of do what we do and hope people like it. And, we've had some amazing opportunities. We've been all over the world with the band, actually. So, that's been fun. The Boston Pops Orchestra.
Did you work with John Williams?
I have worked with John Williams a few times. Truth be told, he's not terribly big on guitar as an instrument, so he tends to not write for it, but occasionally he'll play a chart that involves a guitar, and I get to go do it. John Williams is one of the most amazing human beings I've ever met. Like the guy's ears. I mean, if you can imagine, him standing at the conductor's podium in front of 50 of the best violinists on the planet, and he'll point out to one of them, excuse me, can you play that violin 2 6 chairs back, can you play that C sharp a little softer, please? Just really, like an incredible amount of detail.
Probably the most famous 2 notes he ever wrote were for the bass.
That's right. E and F.
E and F from the film
Jaws.
I want to ask you if you could answer this briefly and in layman's terms. What in the world? You talked about your educational resources.
Yeah, sure.
What is it called? Warped refraction?
The warp refraction principle.
That's your own thing?
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
In 30 seconds or less, what is it?
Okay, so the warp refraction principle is it's an overly complicated way of describing the fact that the guitar has a major third tuning between the G and B strings. Now, it's called the warp refraction principle to call attention to it, to get the guitar player to really think about how that affects how you organize the instrument. Because most guitar players, when they play, they tend to start by thinking in terms of shapes, right? And you get a lot done by thinking in terms of shapes. But there is a point where you sort of hit the wall. Okay, so the warp refraction principle states that the guitar's fretboard is divided into two separate but equal universes. The lower universe is string set 6, 5, 4, and 3. The upper universe is strings 2 and 1. Those two universes are separated by an anomaly known as the warp refraction threshold, which is located between the second and third strings. Crossing the warp refraction threshold causes the optical illusion that fingerings are offset by one fret. Okay.
Well, thank goodness we bass players don't have to worry about it, because
That's right.
we stop.
It's all fourths.
All right. More information in the title of it's a book, or it's a.
That was the original. That's in a book I wrote called Advanced Modern Rock Guitar Improvisation.
Okay.
And what happened there was I originally titled the book The Warp Refraction Principle when I submitted it, because it's a central idea to a lot of the concepts that are in the book.
And the marketing people at the publishing company.
Well, the marketing people made a great point. They said, if somebody goes into a store and they're looking through guitar books, they're not going to even pick up the book called The Warp Refraction Principle, because they're just not going to get what the title means. They're not going to get that until they have a chance to read it. So what you want is a title that says what the book is. You want the title's job is to get the person in the store to pick it up and look at it.
They do make a good point.
I couldn't argue with it. So, yeah.
So the actual title turned out to be of the book?
Advanced Modern Rock Guitar Improvisation.
Got it. Okay. What you holding in your lap there, John?
Oh, this is a custom Ibanez guitar. It's based on the SV model. But this one does come from the custom shop. It's normally the SVs have 24 frets. This has 22, and the reason being is that the location of where the 24th fret would be is right on the pickup can be right under where the 24th fret would be, and that to me has an enormous influence over the tone, the location of the pickup. For certain things that I really like to have the pickup right under that 24th fret spot.
Okay.
So
you've been with Ibanez for
since 1994.
Okay, well that's a long time.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, a guy of your stature, you can play anything you want, I'm sure. Tell us what you like about Ibanez and why you've stuck with them for so long.
Well, first and foremost, they make a great instrument that does what I needed to do. Like the ones I get are from the custom shop. So the build quality is always, top notch. But any off the shelf Ibanez guitar sounds great, plays great, and they have enough in their models that are inexpensive enough that just about anybody can afford them. Which I think is important. That's to be able to manufacture an instrument that sounds good, is reliable, and doesn't cost a small fortune. That for me is really worth getting behind. And I've played some guitars that are worth a lot more money than this one.
That cost a lot more money.
That cost a lot more. Yeah, great point. And I keep coming back to this one, this particular model, the guys that built it really just we had done a few other models, and with this one they just hit the ball clean out of the park.
I see Seymour Duncan.
Yeah, so it's got Seymour Duncans in it. This one is the Pearly Gates model. That's a duckbucker, and this is the JV model.
Okay. What kind of strings do you have on here?
Those are Ernie balls from 10 to 50, whatever it is.
Okay.
It starts at 10.
All right. You seem pretty settled and established in your career. You've been at Berklee since '88. You've done all the stuff that you mentioned. What about the future? What else would you like to do that you haven't already accomplished?
Well, first of all, I'm glad that I'm effectively able to create that illusion of being settled, because,
Established is maybe a better word.
even then,
You have a steady gig.
well, okay.
I'm trying to work with you. Work with me.
No, it's not that. It's just, what I'm saying is that, like I've just always gotten used to, just try to look for the next thing to do.
Without being complacent.
Well, yes, or to some level comfortable.
Okay.
I kind of think that in some ways comfortable can be overrated.
Okay.
Like if you're because comfortable isn't where the growth is.
Right. You got to get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Well, having said all that, and I'm glad you clarified that. But is there a list of someday I've
Okay.
always wanted to, or one of these days I'm gonna.
Okay, well, I'm going to record another album.
Good.
So if we're talking bucket list stuff,
Sure.
I want to get my private pilot's license. It has nothing to do with music. I'm just interested in it. I went flying a couple of weeks ago and just loved it.
I interviewed Nathan East not too long ago. And
Yeah.
Did you know he's a pilot?
I didn't.
Now you do.
I didn't. Well, as my good friend of mine, Steve Morse, is also a pretty well-known pilot.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, but yeah,
You mentioned the drags, but we've interviewed him also on the site.
I don't know if he ever told you this story, but the way that he got he joined the band Kansas.
Yeah.
Well, the way that happened was that he was piloting a commuter jet between Atlanta and Miami, and the band Kansas got on one of his flights, and they're getting on. He gets them, and he's pilot. He's the captain. So this is after he broke up the Dixie Dregs and before he joined Kansas. So he gets him up in the air, and he says, "Hi, I'm your pilot. I'm Steve Morse." And they're all sort of nudging each other because they're all Steve Morse fans. So and then as they're getting off the plane, they see him like sort of thanking everybody, and they're like, "Oh my God, this is really Steve Morse! Holy shit!"
I saw him at a NAMM show in like 1990, 91 with Eddie Van Halen
Yeah.
and Albert Lee, the three of them together.
Yep. Yeah, probably for Ernie Ball, because Eddie would have been Ernie Ball artist at the time,
Okay.
and Steve has been with Ernie Ball for many years. Yeah, they make great instruments. But okay, so beyond that, I would love to do some guitar with full orchestra pieces. I mean, I've played a lot with orchestra.
You probably have John Williams' number, right?
Well, no, I don't have his. No, but I would love to write something that gets played by an orchestra, but by a good orchestra.
Well, there's a pretty good one up the street here, I understand.
Yeah, so I hear.
Last question, John. What would you be if you were not a guitar player or something outside of music?
That's a good question. I made that decision to be a guitar player when I was 6. So, and I never looked back. And the only thing I got for that is that sometimes I look back on my life and say, I've lived my life based on the decisions of a 6-year-old.
Well, you could put a positive spin on that.
Yeah,
too. I've known from a very early age, so
Yeah.
I'm lucky to have been blessed with
Well,
that
yeah,
knowledge
it's-
and that drive from such an early age.
That's true. But that's true. That's probably the best way to look at it.
You know what? I'm glad things worked out the way they did, and
Yeah.
I think you should be too.
I have been so lucky that I mean, if anybody watching this is thinking about a career in music, I can tell you that the money part can be challenging. That there's quite a bit of hard work involved, but I can't imagine living a more satisfying life doing anything else.
When you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life.
That's exactly
And
right.
Interpret it as you will.
Yeah.
Okay. Jon Finn, it's so great getting to hang with you one-on-one. Thank you so much. Much luck, continued success to you always, and keep us posted on that new record and everything else, and the orchestral piece.
Cool, man.
Make that happen.
I'll try.
On location in Boston, Massachusetts, with Massachusettsian Jon Finn on the campus of Berklee College of Music. I'm John Liebman. You're watching forguitarplayersonly.com.
She said